just like to offer a big shout out to Touchdown Digital for sponsoring this week's video. Learning the basics and fundamentals in photography, I believe, is probably the most important step you could take as a new photographer. Hello, my name's Glenn Selmy and you're watching Sniper Photography. I hope you're all fighting fit and well. Yes, today I want to talk to you about learning the basics and the fundamentals of photography, especially if you're just starting out or you've been, dabbling in with photography for not too long. Now, through the workshops that I teach here in the beautiful Blue Mountains of New South Wales, I often see, quite often I see a lot of people trying to learn the more sophisticated parts about photography instead of learning the basics and the fundamentals. So what are the basics and fundamentals of photography? Well, basically learning about the equipment that you currently have, learning what each system does. It all depends on what brand of camera you're using, and it really doesn't matter what brand, as long as you know how to use it. Because at the end of the day, a camera is just a tool of trade. That's all it is. Cameras aren't smart. The person that's smart is the person that's holding it. So to learn the basics with photography is so important. Learning what aperture and to use on a particular location, or what does aperture have to do with shutter speed, and what does shutter speed have to do with reading the histogram. Learning how to read a histogram is very, very important. Learning how to focus manual is also very important. It's no use you wanting to go out and learn how to focus stack if you've never focused a lens manually before. It just doesn't work. So learning the basics about photography, learning your equipment, learning what light does to the sensor inside your camera, learning how to control the light. These are the basic concepts of photography. It has nothing to do with what camera you're using. It has nothing to do what quality lens you're using. Sure, they're important, but you must stop and think. If you're new to something, you've got to learn the basics of it first. Like, for argument's sake, my daughter, my youngest of three children that I have, she's now 21 going on 22, and she's just finished university at Charles Sturt University in Bathurst, and now she's a registered nurse. Now, that was 3 years of studying, but she also went out and worked in hospitals and nursing homes as part of their placement, and that way she got hands-on experience. And that's the same with our photography. One of the best ways to learn how to become a photographer is to grab the camera that you have and go out and start doing photography. That's how you improve with photography, by taking your camera out and going out there with your camera and doing photography. There's lots of YouTube videos you can watch. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there that probably don't apply to what you're trying to learn. You have to decipher which ones you want to subscribe to and which ones you don't. Now, in the following video after this, I'll be nominating a few channels which I think people should be subscribed to and should be watching, and that in itself will help you. But the best way to learn photography is to get your camera and go out and start doing photography. Now, the fundamentals I regard as being almost as important as the basics. You should be able to arrive at your chosen location and know exactly how to set up your tripod, know exactly what settings to use or have a rough idea, because you've learnt the basics of photography. So there's the basics of photography, then there's the fundamental side of it, where you should automatically know this. And I strongly suggest that you become an expert at the basics of photography and the fundamentals of photography. If you become an expert at that, then everything else will come to you in a given time. No use going to try and go out and learn how to use Lightroom and Photoshop if you really don't know how to compose an image, or you don't really know how to use a histogram in your camera, you don't know how to set white balance. These are all the things that you need to learn before you progress up to the next level. There's no shortcuts in learning photography. There is definitely no shortcuts. I've been involved in photography now for, I'm 58 years of age, and I got my first camera when I was 10. Didn't know what the thing was, didn't know what to do with it, and that's been me ever since. I've been involved in photography since the age of 10. So I think I'm qualified enough to speak about this, and this is how I teach in my workshops. Now, I strongly suggest that you learn the basics and the fundamentals of photography and become an expert at them. Learn how to use your camera, what settings to use, and when you arrive at your location, you know automatically what settings and what lenses and what apertures and everything else you should know, and you should become an expert at that. So become an expert at the basics and the fundamentals. Learn those two things before you try and progress into other areas of photography, meaning more serious sort of stuff, or more challenging settings or challenging compositions. So get the basics right, get the platform down properly, down pat, and I think you'll be right there. It's like when a builder builds a house. They don't start from the roof. They start with the concrete slab and then they go up. And that's how I like to gauge with photography with new people. Start at a base level and then work your way up. Don't start from the top, because if you start at the top, it's going to be very, very difficult for you because you haven't learnt the basics or the fundamentals of photography. Just to finish up, I had a workshop here about 3 days ago, and it's very cold here. It's only 10 degrees actually. I had a workshop about 3 days ago, and when we finish a workshop, we sit down, we have some lunch, and the people talk. They share images and share ideas and thoughts, and it's a really good way actually of finishing a workshop. But this lady came up to me and said to me, "Glenn, how will I know," meaning herself, when will she know that she's a good photographer? Now, there's various answers to that question, but the answer that I gave this particular lady that participated in one of my workshops was, well, how you gauge yourself as a good photographer is, one, if you're happy with the images or the work that you're doing, but more importantly, if you can arrive at a location and you automatically know what settings to use, what lens to use, what your histogram should look like, without fiddling around with the camera or your tripod. You should be able to set everything up straight away and start shooting. That's when you know you're a good photographer. Because I've seen it so many times. People arrive at a location, they're messing around with their tripod, they're messing around with filters and lenses, and I can tell that they just don't know what they're really doing, or they haven't been involved in photography long enough. But when I see a photographer turn up, has a quick look around, gets the tripod set up, gets the chosen lens out of the bag, and sets up and starts taking images, I know for a fact that that person is a fairly competent photographer. And that's how you'll know when you're a good photographer, when you can set up straight away after looking at your composition and start firing off those images, knowing full well that you know exactly what you're doing. So remember, if you're new to photography, learn the basics and the fundamentals, start from the base and work your way up to the top. So any questions or comments, please put them down below. I'll certainly get back to you as soon as I can. I think this is a rather important part of photography. Next video will be, I'll be mentioning a few YouTube presenters which I think you should be following. They're all about teaching. There's 2 in Australia, and there's 3 or 4 in the UK and 1 in the United States. So that'll be the next video in the next few days. Getting very, very cold here now. The fog's starting to roll in and we're not even in winter yet, my God. But other than that, I'm going to grab a hot chocolate. So until next time, my name's Glenn Samuel. Thank you for watching Sniper Photography. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, the bell next door, so you don't miss anything. So until then, keep smiling, keep shooting, take care of yourself. Bye for now.